Welcome to the Explainer. So glad you're joining us. Look, today we're diving straight into the absolute high-stakes, rapidly shifting world of modern cloud security. We're going to unpack the sheer mind-boggling scale of cloud infrastructure right now, and more importantly, how the rules for actually defending it are being completely rewritten in real time.
I want to start off with a question that honestly should probably keep every security pro awake at night. What happens when artificial intelligence hands your average mid-tier hacker the kind of operational firepower that used to be strictly reserved for elite nation-states? It's wild to think about, right? Because the explosive growth of cloud computing, combined with how insanely accessible generative AI is now, has basically flipped the entire threat landscape upside down. The barrier to entry, it's literally plummeted, and our attack surface has never been wider.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the accelerating cloud era, then how AI democratizes cyber attacks. After that, we're heading into the misconfiguration danger zone, followed by implementing zero-trust architecture, and we'll wrap up with the learn, break, and fix training method. Let's get into it. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the accelerating cloud era. Because before we can even talk about securing the cloud, we really need to wrap our heads around the massive financial weight and sheer scale of what we're actually trying to protect here.
Okay, let's dive into this number. Gartner forecasts that worldwide public cloud end user spending is going to hit roughly $850 billion by 2026. Yeah, $850 billion. That's a 21.3% growth rate. The cloud isn't just some tech trend anymore. It's the fundamental bedrock of the entire global digital economy. And honestly, this market is speeding up, not slowing down. It is just racing toward that trillion-dollar mark. And when you look at where all that money is actually flowing, it's totally dominated by just a few massive players. The big three providers scoop up over 60% of this global infrastructure spending. You've got AWS leading the pack at 28%, Microsoft Azure right on their heels at 21%, and Google Cloud holding 14%. So, practically speaking, if you are defending the cloud today, your battleground is almost certainly built on one, or maybe a tangled mix of these three platforms. But here's the catch. With that kind of massive growth comes an almost inevitable loss of control. Organizations themselves are estimating that 29% of their cloud spend is completely wasted, just thrown right out the window. And what's really fascinating here is that this is the first time in 5 years that cloud waste has actually gone up. Why? Well, it's mostly driven by these incredibly complex, resource-hungry new AI workloads. Companies are spinning up infrastructure way faster than they can actually govern it, leaving these sprawling, unmanaged assets just kind of sitting out there. And that sprawling, sometimes mismanaged surface area leads us perfectly into Section 2. AI democratizes cyber attacks. We're going to see exactly how this vast cloud environment is now facing a new, rapidly evolving, and highly automated kind of threat. So we need to define a super critical new concept that the Cloud Security Alliance recently identified, the state-adjacent threat. Now, historically, there was this massive, basically unbridgeable gap between top-tier nation-state actors and, well, everyone else. But generative AI, it's acting as the ultimate equalizer. Take this threat cluster researchers call Gray Vibe. They're assessed as having honestly pretty low to moderate underlying sophistication. They make basic operational security mistakes, but because they leverage AI so heavily, they've been able to sustain these complex multi-campaign operations. The AI essentially patches right over their lack of baseline expertise. So the crucial point here, as the CSIS Strategic Technologies blog perfectly puts it, is that AI creates a compression of the gap between mid-tier and elite operators. You see, AI isn't necessarily inventing new targets out of thin air. Instead, it's dramatically lowering the barrier to entry. It hands moderately motivated groups a capability floor that, frankly, used to require a whole team of highly specialized engineers and years of intensive training. Think about it. Generative AI allows these mid-tier attackers to quickly craft basically flawless phishing lures in any language. They can develop functional malware that easily evades static detection, and they can scale up their reconnaissance against cloud infrastructure at blinding speeds. They don't even need to know how to write perfect code anymore. They just need to know how to prompt an AI model to write it for them. Which brings us to Section 3, the misconfiguration danger zone. Because with these AI-empowered attackers moving faster than ever, we have to ask, what exactly are they hunting for? Let's zero in on the specific vulnerabilities they're targeting in the cloud. There's a pretty stark contrast in perspectives here that we need to acknowledge. Defenders tend to look at their cloud architecture and think about things like visibility, compliance, and control. They see a nice, clean architecture diagram. But attackers, They look at that exact same cloud environment and just see a gold mine of highly vulnerable misconfigurations. Their loop is simple. Perform recon, find exposed assets, and exploit them. Trust me, they do not care about your compliance reports, they only care about your mistakes. And let me tell you, the single most common mistake of all revolves around cloud storage. Picture this for a second, a secure private cloud storage bucket. Suddenly, with just one bad click, its settings flip from private to public. Instantly, all those sensitive files, documents, and application data just pour out, totally accessible to the entire internet. This one setting can expose your data globally in literally seconds. Now, as you can see, public storage itself isn't automatically a bad thing. I mean, you need it to host public images for your website, right? But unintended public access, that is a massive security risk. Things like strict bucket policies, access controls, encryption, and continuous monitoring, those are your absolute lifelines here.
Let's walk through how this can build into a devastating breach. This is a classic, super effective attack chain. The attackers start by finding a simple web bug on a server, maybe a server-side request forgery or SSRF. They use that vulnerability to quietly query the server's internal metadata service. And from there, they manage to extract highly privileged AWS credentials. Boom. Just like that, in 3 simple steps, a fairly minor web application bug turns into a full-blown compromise of your entire cloud environment.
And here's the scary part. Once an attacker grabs those credentials, your traditional network defenses are completely useless. Which leads us to our solution in Section 4, implementing Zero Trust architecture. We're pivoting now from the problem to the actual architectural defense you need to stop these advanced threats in their tracks. To really build this defense properly, we look straight to the gold standard framework provided by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and specifically their National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Their guidelines provide a ridiculously rigorous, highly detailed blueprint for rolling out zero-trust architectures across complex hybrid and multi-cloud environments. And this brilliantly illustrates what zero trust actually looks like in practice. It's tough. You absolutely can no longer trust a user or a device just because they happen to be inside the corporate network. No way. You have to protect data everywhere it lives. You have to operate with a permanent assumed breach mentality. Insiders? Never automatically trusted. And the biggest key here? Authentication has to be continuous. You verify identity and endpoint health for every single request, every single time. No exceptions.
But look, having a brilliant framework on paper is very, very different from having a team that can actually build and maintain it. That brings us to our final section, Section 5, Learn, Break, and Fix. Let's talk about how security teams actually need to train to defend these zero-trust environments. Because, let's be real, the traditional cybersecurity training model, it's fundamentally broken. It usually looks exactly like this. You watch a video, you passively watch another video, maybe you watch a third, and then you click through a multiple-choice quiz to get a certificate. Guys, passive learning is just not going to cut it against AI-empowered attackers. If your team only knows cloud theory, they are going to get totally outmaneuvered by an attacker who actually knows how to get their hands dirty and exploit the real infrastructure. Instead, we really need a modern, hands-on pedagogical philosophy, like the SutraByte learning methodology. It's intensely active. First, you learn the core concept. Then, you actually build the cloud infrastructure yourself. Next, and this is the fun part, you intentionally break it by attacking your own misconfigurations. After that, you analyze the risk, you fix the vulnerability, and you document the process. You're learning to secure the cloud by literally playing the role of both the attacker and the defender. This exact philosophy is fully baked into the SutraByte 6-week cloud security roadmap. Over 6 weeks, students start from cloud foundations, move into identity security, build core infrastructure, and then actively hunt for the attack surface. And it all culminates in this incredible simulated attack on a fictional company called SutraCorp. Students get dropped into a compromised environment and they're forced to conduct real recon, identify the critical weakness, demonstrate the actual attack, and then write up a professional-grade security report. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are you going to just keep passively collecting multiple-choice certificates, or are you ready to actually get your hands dirty? Are you ready to learn how cloud misconfigurations are truly discovered, attacked, and fixed in the real world? If you are ready to finally move beyond the theory, SutraByte Cloud Security starts on September 15th. It is time to stop watching and start building. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and